Resounding voices are echoing around the world as the global impact of climate change gets more severe, with developing countries at the receiving end. As the world looks for mitigation and adaptation strategies, the role of environmental impact assessment has become crucial in avoiding basic environmental hazards that the AFDB food price is holding in the United States. And these are the focus of this week's episode of Africa Weekly. I am Charles Alpha, welcoming you to the program. Building resilience in all fronts in the wake of adverse environmental impact occasioned by climate change and unwholesome human activities is what players in the environmental impact assessment space believe will help vulnerable countries cope and adapt to climate change impact. Industrial and plastic waste, crude oil spillage, and extreme weather events have all impacted the environment in form of land encroachment, desertification, flood, erosion, and loss of biodiversity. These are some of the issues this 7th Impact Assessment Conference seeks to address.
A lot of things are happening with our climate, and we need to start doing something so that we'll build up the resilience. We have adaptation that will help us to cope.
1 minute without the environment, we will all cease to exist. And so we need to continually talk about the changes that are occurring in our environment.
The idea is to bring together policy and decision makers, as well as regulators and environmental analysts, to find a potent way of providing protection for the environment.
Granted that even the emission coming from us is said to be less than 4%, but the ripple effect is huge.
It is crucial for the Association for Environmental Impact Assessment to critically appraise the emerging challenges that are inherent to be able to balance our actions towards achieving sustainable development.
The stakeholders believe Africa has lots of vegetations to leverage to mitigate extreme weather events, but that this can only be realized through impact assessment. Joining me right now via Zoom is the President, Association of Environmental Impact Assessment of Nigeria, Professor Ijoma Vincent. I want to say thank you very much, Prof, for finding time to talk to us on the program.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
All right, to begin with, can you help us, assess the impact of climate change on our environment before we go on to the next question, please?
Climate change, as we all know, is the change of climatic condition. That is different from weather. Change of climatic condition, which is the long term of our weather condition. So the impacts on the environment are quite huge. We know we are hearing a lot of flooding, heat wave, sea level rise. There's so many things, impacts of this climate change. And that's why when the things we are supposed to have at the same time, we'll have a different weather condition. For example, the rainfall, you don't even predict when it is time for rainfall. And when it's time for sunshine, you have a lot of heat coming up. These are some of the impacts of climate change on the environment.
Okay, so now if you begin to look at what government and stakeholders are doing in adaptation strategies to mitigate climate change, where does the association, the impact assessment of the environment come in here?
Yeah, like you rightly said, our association is Association for Environmental Impact Assessment of Nigeria. Yeah. And we know that we try to put value or promote the use of environmental impact assessment. And we know it's a decision-making tool that helps us to assess the impact of our activity before we put up that activity. So as association, we are trying to promote the use of it. We all know the impact of climate change, but what can we use to assess and to help us to mitigate this impact? A lot of us don't know, and that's why we're advocating for the use of environmental impact assessment tool that will help us to identify the impact of climate change before we start a project or before we start in the proposal stage. It will help us to identify the impact that climate change will have on the environment. It will help us to mitigate all this and put them in place before the project starts. That means trying to put measures during the designing stage in whatever activity we are going to do. That's how we can use impact assessment to help us to mitigate climate change.
Okay, so now the thing is, you had an event here in Abuja some time ago, recently, I would say, on the same problem that you have identified, talking about the impact of climate change on the environment. And we know that when such event, conference or AGM like that is held, it's usually some kind of takeaways or some kind of resolution that have been reached in such meetings. So if you, as the president of such organization, can you take us through some of the key points, the key areas of resolution, key areas of conversations, that this association, had engaged stakeholders on, and what are the likely outcome and your expectation, from this conference?
Yeah, the conference was held in October from 17 to 20. And the theme of this conference was climate resilience, financing and environmental sustainability. That was the major theme because of the activities, because of the global issue on climate change. And that's why we had that conference. And in that conference, we brought together stakeholders from the consultants, from the regulators. They all came together and we all put things together to help us to mitigate climate change. We know that Nigeria as a country is vulnerable to climate change, especially to flooding. And this can be due to the transboundary nature of climate change, inadequate technology and resources to combat this climate change. So the take home from our meeting is that the climate change issue is here with us, but we all need to have a collective effort. We all have to do something about it. And what we have agreed is that every part of the stakeholders all have to put things in place. It's not just the government, but we need to put things together. So we need to have extensive impact of this climate change that is being experienced. But it's time for us to have a proactive and climate-friendly and sustainable development trajectory that will help us to combat this climate change, that it has to be driven by the Ministry of Environment.
Okay.
So that we can use this tool whenever we want to think of an activity, because EIA is a decision-making tool that we can use. So the governments have to bring up regulations that will streamline the integration of climate change adaptation into our activity. And we have to commit to carbon neutral development strategy anchored in robust defined mitigation and adaptation roadmap that is driven by policy and legislation that will help us to underpin investment-friendly environments.
It's all right. So, Prof, just one more question before I let you go. Now, the thing is, in your drive to assess the impact of climate change on the environment, I'd like to know what sort of collaboration or kind of support are you getting from stakeholders or even government? You made mention of the Federal Ministry of Environment. I'd like to ask, what sort of support are you getting in that regard?
The Ministry of Environment, they are parts, most of them are part of our association, which is Association for Environmental Impact Assessment of Nigeria. Right. This is where we know that the EIA tools, that's environmental impact assessment tools, that they are the veritable tool we can use to combat this. Yes, the Ministry of Environment, through the Environmental Department, they are behind us. We do activities, some of the activities together. We try to create awareness. And we also ask other regulators and other organizations to join the association to help us to promote the use of impact assessments as a tool that can help us to combat climate change, which has been used in other countries. You know, other countries have seen the relevance of EIA, and that's why most of them are making use of it. Of recent, it has been passed, that was last year, when they're talking about that's the nutrition offshore. You know, the high sea, it's like a no man's land. But now they're advocating the use of EIA to look at the activities that are being carried out on the high sea. Right. So we in this country can also join and make use of this impact assessment tool, which our organization are promoting. We try to create awareness, and we know that the government will join in helping us to promote this use.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Ijeoma Vincent. We want to say thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us on the program.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So Vice President of Nigeria, Kashim Shettima, joined other leaders at the Bullock Dialogue in the United States of America, which brings together individuals from more than 65 countries to address cutting-edge issues relating to global food security and nutrition. Now, this year's theme is Transforming Food System, a global action agenda.
It's a gathering of key decision makers here in the United States of America from more than 65 countries, prepared to address cutting-edge issues relating to global food security and nutrition. Harnessing Change is the theme for the World Food Prize Foundation Conference, and Nigeria's Agribusiness Roadmap for a Prosperous Future was the paper delivered by Vice President Kashim Shettima, with the primary objective to empower farmers and attract investors.
Allow me to share that Nigeria stands the essence of partnerships in sustaining the dreams and promises that has brought us together here.
Restating Nigeria's firm belief in the power of partnership, the essence is to sustain the promises to achieve food and nutrition security in Nigeria and beyond, highlighting critical areas the country was assisting its farmers to increase productivity, including essential infrastructure for industries to increase their capacity.
With the invaluable support of our partners, we are exploring innovative strategies to transform this quest for food security into a thriving enterprise. Nigeria, under the leadership of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has long demonstrated that the agri-food sector is a top priority. Our primary objective is to empower our farmers and attract investors. We are increasing primary production to harness the economic potential of agro-processing and industrialization.
And another area of intervention the government is working on, the Vice President said, is the establishment of mechanization service centers in all the 774 local government areas to facilitate essential primary production services geared towards reversing Nigeria's over-reliance on importation.
Having just assumed office this year, we are honored and humbled to have him address this dialogue, and we look forward to working with him and the Nigerian government to increase the implementation of innovations and to strengthen agriculture trading and build climate resilience.
President of the World Food Prize Foundation, Ambassador Thierry Branstad, acknowledged Nigeria's commitment to the journey towards a world where food security and nutrition are not luxuries but fundamental rights for all. Nigeria has also introduced a wide range of tax incentives, including tax holidays, deductions from locally sourced materials, labor incentives, and pioneer status incentives, making it easier to conduct business in line with the federal government ease of doing business policy.
One of the means of growing a robust economy is an effective supply chain system. How much of this is being practiced in Africa? We attempt to find in this conversation with the foremost expert in the field, Ejem, an associate prof at the Federal University of Technology, Owerri. Joining me now to talk more on this issue is Professor Ejem. Ejem, he is a foremost expert in this field, and I want to say thank you very much, Prof, for joining us on Africa Weekly on this edition.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure.
All right, thank you. All right, so now help us make a sense of what supply chain management is all about.
All right. Supply chain management are those activities involved in the process of design, production, and transportation of goods and services. In fact, they include such things like the quality control, innovation, product optimization, operations control, risk management, buyer-supplier relationship, or other environmental considerations, outsourcing, distribution, and planning strategies, just to mention a few. Thank you.
Okay, now, so in Africa, and indeed Nigeria, what is the relevance of this practice in the economy?
Well, very, very succinctly stated, our supply chain is key to any economy, both nationally and globally, because it is actually what shapes the economy of any nation. For instance, supply chain solution, management solutions addresses problems like distribution network configurations, that is determining the number, location, and intentions of suppliers, production facilities, distribution centers, warehouses, and all that. And also supply chain management is actually what addresses the issue of cash flow in payment patterns and methods for exchanging funds throughout the supply chain system of any country. It's actually what is very critical in inventory management also. That's location and the quality of inventory, including raw materials, work in progress, and finished good. So it's critical, The issue of also knowledge, information sharing is a supply chain activity. So these are very important, crucial roles that no nation can afford to play with if that nation must survive. Thank you.
So now with all this explanation, I'd like to know, and how can or who can be regarded as a supply chain management practitioner, and what is the process of certification? You know, with all you have just said.
Yeah, that is very key. A supply chain practitioner is one who can plan, organize, execute, control, and coordinate the activities and interrelationship across a supply chain environment. In fact, critically, it's important to know that there are 7 players of supply chain management. They include the purchasing, manufacturing, inventory management, demand planning, warehousing, transportation, and customer service. So these are critical players in the supply chain. And the question is, how do you get certifications? In fact, It's actually a whole lot of process. There's a lot of certifications available in supply chain management profession. There is a very important, what we call the apex body. We call them the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals. They are the apex body. They certify professionals in this. There's also the Association for Supply Chain Management, which also certify people in logistics and transportation distribution. They also certify people in production and inventory management. They also certify core supply chain professional and all that. A whole lot of certifications are available in supply chain. Even Oracle Institute also is involved in supply chain certification. Quite a whole number of them. Thank you.
All right. So now, Prof, your department recently, held an international symposium on supply chain management. Now, can you take us through this event and the relevance of the theme?
Yeah, thank you. It is important to note that the Department of Supply Chain Management is a relatively young one at the Federal University of Technology, Owerri. And so it was important that we make ourselves visible. And that was why we actually had to package this international symposium with the team, Universities and Industry Partnership for Sustainable Supply Chain Management Education and Professional Practice. In fact, this actually was the maiden edition. And the aim was to seek strategies for closer collaboration between the academia and the supply chain professionals. So, it is imperative that every university system must work in tandem with the current realities. They must be aware of the dynamics of the industry. So that's why actually we had to find a way to bring the stakeholders together and then, try to ensure they are working with us as we're developing our programs, more so that we're even planning to launch our postgraduate program, in supply chain management. So critically, the essence of the whole symposium is to actually harness the importance of the stakeholders, the industry, to bridge the gap between the town and gown, the classroom and industry. That was actually the whole essence of the whole symposium. Thank you.
All right, Prof, thank you so much for all the things you have said, the light you've shed on this particular topic. I want to say it is nice having you on Africa Weekly this week.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
That's our package this week on Africa Weekly. Thanks for watching. I am Charles Alpha.